Battlefield 6 is here, and it doesn't perform too shabbily. Intel is changing how video games work, and AMD is changing how their GPUs work. Finally, doing the good thing. Let's get into the hot news, everybody. I'm your Brett host. We're going to be going over the hottest tech news I can find on the internet while you enjoy your breakfast this Friday, October 10th, 2025. Just as a reminder, today is the drawing for our PC giveaways over on our Twitch streams at 3 p.m. South African Standard Time. We're going to be drawing the winners for our Falcon Northwest Talon, which has Reece's face on it with the 5090 in it, the Falcon Northwest Tiki emblazoned with the South African flag, and a 9070 XT on the internals with the 9800X 3D, and then the twitch.tv/UFD Music giveaway is going to have a 5070 Ti computer on the ready to give away to one of yins today. After that, we'll have more PCs to give away. We'll have another 5090 PC for UFD Tech. We'll have another 5070 Ti PC for UFD Music, and it'll all be a good time. So come check us out before 3 p.m. South African Standard Time. Oh, hold on. This episode goes live at that time. Then think this one through. Tune in for the next giveaways. That's essentially what you're gonna have to do. And you might be tuning in today to Battlefield 6. You might be wondering, how is my computer gonna perform? In case you didn't get to check out the demo or you didn't think that was indicative of real world performance once the game actually launched. DICE coming out with the specifications for how your PC is gonna perform at this game. And if you have a 2060 5600 XT or an ARC A380 of all things, 1080p 30 FPS low settings is what they're claiming you should be able to get with an i5 8400 or Ryzen 5 2600 on the CPU side. If you want to go Ultra plus, you gotta have a 9800X 3D, Ultra 9 285K, and a 5080 with all of that DLSS super resolution stuff thrown in there. So that's 4K 144 hertz or 4K 240 hertz. That's what they're essentially saying you're gonna need with multi-frame gen, all that kind of stuff. But it's not just smoke they're blowing. Tech Power Up releasing their 40 GPU test of Battlefield 6, showing off that, yeah, this is actually a pretty well-performing PC game. At 1080p overkill preset, so the highest you could possibly get, the 5090 setting 210 FPS. To get 60 FPS at, again, the very highest preset that you could possibly go, you're gonna need a 9060 XT 8GB, or a 3060 Ti 8GB, or 4060 Ti 8GB, or 5060 8GB, or 5060 Ti 8GB, or 3070 Ti 8GB. And Tech Power Up even showing off what the VRAM usage situation looks like at 1080p low settings. You're looking at using roughly 6 megabytes of memory. At 1080p overkill, you're looking at using roughly 13 gigabytes. However, again, if you're happening to play on a GPU that has less than that 12 amount, you should be mostly fine. You know, 5060, I wouldn't necessarily think that's the highest possible preset you should be playing at, but you could do that. Additionally, Tech Power Up reporting that Battlefield 6 doesn't have much in the way of shader stutter, so it should be an enjoyable experience. Let me know if you're gonna rock Battlefield 6 today. If this is something that's gonna get your weekend all established and booked up. And in case you're looking at building a PC to play Battlefield 6 with, you should definitely check out today's videos. Everyone talks about champagne taste on a beer budget when the good stuff is just a little too pricey, but today's sponsor, Okanos, really does deliver premium features in a wallet-friendly package. Okanos' new case, the Air Cross, is a gorgeous ATX chassis optimized for air cooling and sporting premium walnut accents and a pretty nifty custom-designed Starlight power button. The Air Cross effortlessly blends elegance and functionality, providing an optimized dual-channel cooling setup so you can intake horizontally for the CPU and vertically for the GPU. This fella is also ready to cool right away, coming out of the box with 5 pre-installed PWM fans. The real secret to the cooling in the Air Cross is the relocated HDD and PSU. Pushing the power supply to the front of the case allowed Okanos to create a bottom intake that is completely open and, more importantly, directly in line with your GPU. As if it wasn't good enough as it is, the Air Cross is also fully back connector motherboard compatible, so your cables can be looking as sharp as your case. And speaking of cable management, this case is a cable enthusiast dream, with 37mm clearance in the front and 33mm in the back, rubber grommets, included Velcro straps. This offers a hassle-free and builder-friendly cable managing adventure. Something I really like about the Air Cross is the tool-free assembly and disassembly. You can pretty much get this thing down to the frame with just a few thumb screws and some press and release locks. The Air Cross can also fit some beefy hardware in the cooling and GPU department with a max CPU cooler height of 180mm and a max graphics card length of 400mm. You can pack a chunky Dark Rock Pro 5 onto your CPU and a beefy 5090 right under that. Oh, and there's even an included GPU bracket for whatever beefcake of a card you're gonna throw in there. Now, here's the part where everyone groans because features like this mean a whole ton of money, right? Well, no, you're You're wrong. Like I said, champagne taste on a beer budget. Okeanos is launching the feature-packed Aircross for just $79.99. While this is a limited time early bird special, you can still pick this up later on for the regular price of $89.99. Still a crazy deal, I might add. Grab yourself an Okeanos Aircross now via the link in the description below. Thanks to Okeanos for sponsoring. Well, while the Okeanos Aircross might be hitting the market today, it turns out that Valve's next generation VR headset is not quite there, but that doesn't mean it's not on its way, because you should get ready to strap a Steam Deck to your face. The standalone VR headset from Valve has been hotly anticipated for years, and there's even been a Twitter account dedicated to tracking whether it's been released or not. And now it's time to prepare for its launch. The well-known VR enthusiast, the Sad Brad, has revealed that in the latest Steam VR beta software, there's references to the DV1 and DV2 models of the upcoming headset. This is a huge step since DV models are supposed to be the last in line before the production variants hit the market. Allegedly, the Valve Index and Steam Deck only had a single DV unit before they launched, so this bodes well for an imminent launch for the Steam Frame, potentially even before the end of 2025. Some people speculating that it could potentially have an announcement at the Game Awards, and it's not the only news we have, because there's also production reports coming out from China that it looks like this thing's ramping up for mass production. Allegedly, Valve is looking to sell roughly 600,000 units in the first year, roughly what Apple sold the Vision Pro for. Hopefully, the Steam Frame costs significantly less, but the production lines are in effect, the assembly lines are ready to go, and it looks like we're ready for an imminent announcement from Valve on this next generation VR standalone handheld. You don't need the light stations, you don't need to have it attached to a PC. Allegedly, will just be a Steam Deck strapped to your face. But that's not the only big VR news happening right now, because Project Muhan from Samsung is actually getting fully leaked. We're anticipating that the announcement's going to happen next week, sometime in the middle of October, with us having renders, details, UI pictures all coming out with regards to the Galaxy XR headset that's going to be hitting the market. So essentially, it looks like an Apple Vision Pro. They didn't do too much to it, and in fact, its internal displays are also 4K micro OLED, very similar to what we have on the Vision Pro. And you can even see that it has the external cameras, it has the external battery, it has the very similar looking headset, it has speakers that are right next to your ear. It's a very, very Vision Pro-esque design. The only thing I'm surprised they didn't do is add a digital crown for you to turn the things. But also the leak showing off that it's going to look very Android. That's a very Android looking VR headset, XR headset, however you want to call it. The only thing that we're not quite clear on right now is the exact release date and exact pricing, but we do know that it should be using the Snapdragon XR2 Gen 2 headset, which is going to be a little bit behind once it finally releases. Doesn't look like it's going to keep pace with the M2 processor that's in the Vision Pro, which is also supposed to be getting a refresh this month to have the M5 processor. So it's going to be behind from the jump, but it's also not going to be that far behind when it comes to price, because reportedly the price is going to be between $1,700 and $2,800. Essentially just a little bit less than a Vision Pro, but not too much less than what you could get a used Vision Pro for. So let me know if you're excited for the Samsung Galaxy XR experience that's going to be happening, and Reece can help you save some money in case you're thinking about picking one up.
Yo, welcome back to UFD Deals, bringing the hottest tech deals out on the internet, and hey, here's your first deal. Starting off, we have this G-Skill Trident Z5 Neo DDR5 RAM kit featuring 32 gigs at 6000 MHz at CL30 for only $79.99, making it $70 off. But then next up, we have the Sennheiser HD599 SE open back headphones for $99.95, making it $140 off. And then lastly, for the first time in a long time, we have a pre-built with this Alienware Aurora featuring an Intel Core Ultra 7 265F, an RTX 5080, 16 gigs of DDR5, a 1TB SSD, 1000 watt platinum PSU, all for only $169,499, making it $785 off the list price. And hey, with that, the deals are done. You can find these and more linked in the video description down below. But until next time, I'm gonna hand you off back to Brett for the rest of your hot news. Cheers.
Well, Reece, looks like Intel has a pretty good deal with us when it comes to making games better in the future. So, yesterday was the unveiling of the Panther Lake architecture stuff from the deep dive tech tour that happened last week in Arizona, where they flew out a whole bunch of tech journalists and influencers to get all the details about that. As mentioned, I was invited but couldn't go because I was making this international move to South Africa, so I had to find everything out just like the Ins did. But one of the big things that's coming out is Arc Graphics getting rid of shader stutter with pre-compiled shader distribution system, which essentially works very similar to what Microsoft has announced in their advanced shader delivery system, which is that the shaders are pre-compiled and then they store it in the cloud, and then when you download your game, that pre-compiled data file goes with you, and then when you boot it up, the shaders are pre-compiled for your system. It's just that this happens to be specific for Arc GPUs, whereas with Microsoft's, it's supposed to be GPU agnostic and kind of play with whatever GPU you have. It just has to be supported by the dev. So there's going to be multiple versions of this that are going to need to be supported by the dev. Whether or not that is too much workload, if we'll see adoption of all of these, remains to be seen, but we'll keep you updated on all of that. And Intel did update us on the Panther Lake details, essentially revealing everything that the leaks have reported, up to 16 cores, having a next generation GPU, 50% faster CPU performance than the previous generation, 50% faster graphics performance versus the previous generation, up to 180 platform tops, which is actually pretty significant for a laptop without a discrete GPU. I think that puts the latest X Elite chips from Snapdragon to shame by quite a bit. Additionally, the breakdown between all of the cores is essentially what we saw. There's going to be the X variant that's going to have the faster GPU with up to 12 XE3 cores, and then the lower end ones that are going to have 4 XE3 cores, and various different considerations with all of that. And high volume production is allegedly supposed to start by the end of this year, with the first unit to ship before the end of this year in broad market availability beginning in January of 2026, which is also a big deal for Intel's fabrication facility because this is their first introduction to 18A, being on the latest entire production node. And they also talked about how the XE3 GPU is not celestial. Turns out that it's actually going to be just an extension of Battle Mage. Panther Lake going to have Battle Mage graphics, and that the XE3P will be what we're supposed to be calling celestial. So it turns out that it's just a redesigned Battle Mage, not necessarily anything brand new, but we do know that it's going to have up to 12 XE3 cores, which they give some micro benchmarks for compared to the XE2, showing off that it is more performant in their internal benchmarks, especially in various different situations. Also showing off that it has traffic reduction in various different video games, giving us a whole bunch of architectural deep dives on those details, and showing off that XeSS3 is going to have multi-frame gen up to 4 frames, which is exactly what we're getting from NVIDIA's DLSS 4. So, Intel catching up on the software side for all of the details of what's going on with their Xe GPUs. Let me know if you're excited for Panther Lake, if you're excited for what the future of Xe3P might be when it comes to the graphics side of things. I want to hear from you down below in the comments, but it's not just Intel who's catching up on the software side and hardware side. AMD having a little sit down with Sony to talk about their next generation architectures that they're going to be bringing probably to the PlayStation 6, but could also have some indications for what we're going to get on the desktop side of things. So teasing some GPU tech out of Project Amethyst, which is the combination project between Sony and AMD with regards to their architecture. This is nothing new because we knew that RDNA from the get-go was a collaboration project between Sony and AMD, so getting more details about the next generation side of things, not necessarily unprecedented, and the technical preview showing that they're going to have 3 different kind of hardware accelerations that they're going to be bringing to this next generation. Number 1 is going to be neural arrays, a collection of compute units connected to share and process data to work together like a single AI engine, unlocking the next generation of neural rendering. Sounds a lot like NVIDIA's Tensor cores. Then you have Radiance cores from AMD, which are new dedicated ray traversal hardware designed to deliver high-performance real-time ray tracing and path tracing for ultimate immersion. Sounds a lot like NVIDIA's RT cores. And then you have the Universal Compression, a new system that evaluates and compresses all available data within the GPU to dramatically reduce memory bandwidth usage and deliver new levels of performance with greater efficiency. Now, this is something that NVIDIA has kind of had like in pre-production with their neural compression setup that hasn't actually hit the market yet. So AMD not necessarily catching up in that regard, but this could be a pretty big deal when it comes to being able to reduce VRAM constraints on desktop GPUs on various different consoles, because those are going to be constrained in VRAM from the jump as when they're produced. But overall, looking like AMD changing their architecture, changing it so that they're going to have cores that are dedicated for the hardware acceleration that NVIDIA has been doing since 2017 with Tensor cores and 2018 with RT cores with the launch of the RTX series GPUs. It was inevitable that this was going to happen. AMD introducing those cores to make sure that they're not just relying on software acceleration, but also hardware acceleration. The hope would be that because of all of the details that AMD has learned with software acceleration in terms of things like machine learning and ray tracing, that the implementation of the hardware could be even further accelerated beyond what is currently known. That would be the hope. And I hope you guys left some good comments in yesterday's episode of Hot News, so let's see what you had to say. We got Lexus saying, that can't have been Reese's voice, and the Silent Assassin asking, who's speaking? That was Reece. What are you talking about? There's nothing weird about yesterday's deals whatsoever, with XP saying, man, let Reece do his segment in peace, man. The man is just trying to do his job. That is his job. His job is to do it that way. There's nothing weird, okay? Everything about how Reece did deals yesterday is totally normal and fine, and he appreciates it. He is not under duress at all. And then Ampex saying, I was thinking the exact same thing about the drink. Same can from yesterday, still just as empty, don't worry about it. And then we got Gonermy Leggy saying, finally started Expedition 33. Yeah, I get it, can't wait to play more. I'm excited for you. Enjoy it. I like it. Then Z-Back saying, Goaty is easily Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, without a doubt. Turn-based games are mid-AF. Okay, Z-Back, I'm gonna... Number one, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 being in the Game of the Year conversation, totally fine. Okay with that. Heard great things about it. Not my style of game, but I'm glad you enjoy it. Turn-based games being mid-AF. You know what? You speak like somebody who hasn't played Expedition 33. That's my guess as to your conversation language right here, that you're just poo-pooing something before trying it. I would be on the naysayers of turn-based games. I'm not a huge fan of them. Don't tend to like the more modern RPGs that have decided to go back that way, but Expedition 33 hits different. It plays different. It's not quite as boring as pretty much all other turn-based RPGs out on the market. It is an enthralling experience, worth every moment, and I am gonna sing its praises even if it loses Game of the Year. It absolutely is just a phenomenal game. Then we get Dominic saying, graduated from US this semester. Go Gators. Go Gator. And then Fred saying, Brett, with all the Switch drinks, you have me very curious. I live in the United States, Midwest. Is there a way to get them in the States? Import? I'm a fan of some food products from other countries, and there are small companies who import various food products, drinks from those countries. Is there something like that for South Africa? If so, their preferred one you use. I have not found an ability to get Switch in the United States. It's not like the biggest brand here in South Africa either, right? I wouldn't consider it big enough to be like it being able to go global at this point. I have used like some South African food distribution companies in the past to get things like Biltong or Rusks or Rooibos tea. I think it was called Welkom SA, Welkom SA. I might be misremembering, but I believe that's the service I used in the United States to get that kind of stuff. So you can try some South African goodies. I haven't been able to find Switch in the United States, but that's okay. I want to keep it. I want to gatekeep this. I want all the stock to stay here. You know, it's funny because it's not really that funny. This is just an interesting observation that I'm gonna make, because upon my return to South Africa, what I found is that my local grocery store that I shopped at before we left in 2019, I would constantly go there and just clear the shelves of Switch, buying all that they had. And it turns out that is like the best place to get Switch now, because they have all of the new flavors. They're like reliably stocked, and I kind of just want to take credit for that. I'm the guy who set the sales standard there. I'm the guy who, as soon as they were in the store, I bought all of them. I would go multiple times a week to see if they had any Switch, and they were sold out on the regular, but guess what? I would just go back the next day, and as soon as they were there, I would buy it before any other customer could. And it was kind of mean for everybody else, but you know what? That's where I got my blueberry meringue, and I'm shout out to me for making sure that Switch had a future here in Pretoria. And then Izzy saying, can I ask, is your network speed in South Africa with your current ISP actually as advertised? Like at least 90% plus of its advertised speed? Yes, as long as I'm hardwired. So in this office, we have a really, really bad situation in terms of the distribution of Wi-Fi, but it's as long as we're hardwired, we're totally fine. If I'm close to my Wi-Fi 7 mesh router, I'm probably getting 850 to 900 megs down in terms of download speed, and I'm paying for a gigabit, and that's on Wi-Fi. If I'm on Ethernet and hardwired, no issues whatsoever. It's totally fine. So yeah, I'm not really having any issues. And we got Eli Bolton saying, are most of UFD Tech employees paid a salary or by hour? That's actually a really interesting question. I have my personal preferences when it comes to this kind of stuff. I always like to pay people salary, just so, number one, I have a reliable amount that I know I'm paying in terms terms of payroll. Number 2, the people working for me have a reliable amount that they can expect. And number 3, I find that the pressure of having people paid hourly in order to give them work is a bit higher than I like. I personally prefer that, listen, I know how much I have to pay you at the end of the month. If you have a couple hours of downtime multiple times a week, totally fine. I don't feel like I'm losing money by having you just sit there, because technically I'm paying you the same amount no matter what. And as long as you get your work done and you have some free time afterwards, I prefer that. I know that it can go the other way. You know, we're pulling massive overtime because of their salary, and they have terrible work-life balance because they don't have to, because they're salary exempt from overtime and all that kind of stuff. But we really don't do that. We have a pretty hard 9-to-5 schedule at UFD Tech. I mean, if you watch our Twitch streams, you see that Kyler and the team in America leave at 5 p.m. You'll see that me and the team here in South Africa, we leave at 5 p.m. We're done with quitting time. There are exceptions. You know, we have things like our charity events where, you know, overtime happens. We have our CES and Computex trips where overtime happens, but usually that is balanced by either time off on the front end or time off on the back end to, you know, just make up for the fact that you worked extra hard. I'm not in the interest of making this so that UFD Tech is your life. UFD Tech is your job. And it is for me, and I want it to be for everybody else, and you're supposed to have a life outside of what we do here. So hopefully that answered your question. I like to pay people fairly. I like to pay people in a way where it's good for everybody involved. So I hope everybody feels that way here. And I'm gonna feel like I'm dragging this episode out because I'm gonna be done now. I'll see you back here for more of the hottest tech news sometime next week.